Anyways, my name's Brian Peoples, and I'm here to talk about Trail Now. We are not a nonprofit. We are a political action committee group. We're a grassroots organization here to try to promote getting that trail built as soon as possible where the railroad tracks are. And so what is it that we're talking about in the way of a trail? It's the 32-mile railroad tracks that go from Davenport to Watsonville. It's a single track that goes from 25 feet wide to, in some sections, almost 200 feet wide up in the northern section. And what we are focused on as a group is focusing on that 12-mile section from about Santa Cruz to Manresa. And if anybody has walked it, you will realize that it goes through the core of our community. It really is a great asset for our community. And what we're really promoting is using this asset today, within our lifetime, right? And we do have that opportunity. And I encourage you, as I've left on the tables there, little stickers about that will remind you to go to our website. And we're also on Facebook under Trail Now. And so when we talk about a trail, we don't just talk about a narrow trail, we talk about a world-class trail. And what a world-class trail is separating those fast bicyclists from the pedestrians. This is a very, very important part of our promotion, because if you ever go down to LA and walk on a trail along the beach, you'll see that they actually have stoplights where people have to get off their bikes because those trails become so populated. This trail that you're seeing here is down in LA, and bikes are on one side and the pedestrians are on the other. And this is a world-class trail, and this is what we're promoting. So, a little bit of more background about how did we acquire this property, and is a train required for the trail? The property was purchased by the Regional Transportation Commission, not by the county, but by the Regional Transportation Commission back in 2012. It took them quite a while to get the funds to purchase it. They got $11 million from the state to help purchase the property under Proposition 116. If y'all remember back in 1990, Proposition 116 was right after the earthquake, and we said, hey, we need train transportation. So the RTC leveraged this Proposition 116 to purchase this property. They did a great job. They acquired this asset. It's publicly owned. It's a great asset for our community. However, the train was not true. They couldn't have a passenger train because it wasn't truly viable, but they were going to study it. And the California Transportation Commission have told them over the years, a passenger train is not economically viable. And so they came out with the idea of a recreational train. You might have heard of it, Train to Christmastown. They have it operating down by the Watsonville, the dump down there, and also they had it running up by the west side. So the idea was we can have a recreational train, and then we can build a trail parallel to the path. And then we can do a study to see if a train would work. One of the things that we've been encouraging them to do is look at the alternative, which is to pull the tracks out and put in a trail. Pay back the $11 million. And so the RTC, actually our supervisor, Zach Frey, took the initiative to ask the California Transportation Commission, hey, if we pulled out the tracks, what could we do? Are we allowed to do that? And they said, absolutely. You are absolutely allowed to pull those tracks out, but just give us back our $11 million. Okay, so that's a very important factor. So now let me talk a little bit more about the train, okay, and the idea that you had they did a train passenger feasibility study. They just finished it in November of 2015, and some of the results I'm going to share with you in this. But first, let's talk about the train and the fact that if we had a train, what would that be like? In the study, they talked about having anywhere from 30 to 60 trains a day going up and down our rail line. And what we're seeing here is a study of how loud is a train going through our community. A train is required to honk their horn every time they come to an intersection. And if you've heard the train horn, it's pretty loud. And what you're seeing here is actually a sound wave analysis. So you see the tracks are in the middle there, and the red is 90 decibels, the yellow is the 80, and the 70 is the blue. And a jackhammer is about 95.
Wow.
Okay, so can you imagine if we had 60 trains a day? That's every 15 minutes going along our community from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And that's what one of the proposals were. And so if you did that through our community, and so what we did is we have a map here of Capitola. And you can see where you have high schools and elementary schools. You can see, could you imagine this large freight train, the height of the building here, going through our community. And so that's what you would see in the sense of the noise factor. Now, does a train go to the destination? So one of the ideas is this ideology. Everybody says, yeah, I'd love to be able to get on a train at Seascape and ride it to Capitola. Or I wanted to ride it downtown, or I wanted to ride it to UC Santa Cruz. Well, the problem is the train doesn't go where you need to go, right? So what you're seeing here is the train tracks. And the typical person will walk, if you're going to commute to work on a train, you'll typically, if it's more than half a mile to the train station from your home or half a mile to your work, you're not going to take it because any further, if it's 2 miles or a mile, you're not going to do it. So what we show here is the train doesn't really service any type of employer base. And so that's one of the big factors of why a commuter train does not work. Now, one of the difficult things with the cost of this train is it's very expensive to build a train. And so they did the study, they finished it in November of 2015. And they came back with a construction cost of $6.5 million per mile. That's a good way of how you calculate the cost of a train, which is okay, but what you can also do is look at other systems. And so what we did is we said, well, the Portland West side train, which is operational, the cost to build that was $12 million. And this is part of their report. The cost of the Denton A train, which is in Texas, which has all the similar demographics as we do, was $16 million a mile. And then the Oceanside train that they finished up in 2003 or so was $21 million a mile. And in 2005, the Oceanside won an award for being the lowest cost train construction project. So what we're trying to inform the public is that we think that the $6.5 million for their train cost is a little low. Okay? Now, there are other costs associated with the train, which is the operational costs. Their costs came back at $10 million a year, but similar rails are $15 million a year. The other things that were not included in the cost from the feasibility study is the shuttles that you would need to go to UC Santa Cruz, the stations. They didn't include any of the stations or the parking for the train. And, oh, by the way, it's another $120 million to build the trail parallel to the tracks. And I'll talk a little bit about what is the cost without the tracks. So what this works out to be is that taxpayers will be subsidizing this train, if we have it as a passenger train, about $28 per round trip. And so that's one of the things what we're trying to do is talk about, is this train viable? Is it an alternative to reducing traffic? Is it a way to go? And so, in addition to, in this train study, they looked at it, will it reduce Highway 1 traffic? And what the evidence was. Hello? Okay. So the Highway 1 has about 150,000 cars a day going both ways. About 35% of that traffic goes over the hill. So what they found was that the train would only have, it basically has no impact on Highway 1 traffic. They're talking 5,000 people would ride it, 2,500 one way, 2,500 the other way. And so if you look at it, this is a report from the recent Caltrain study on the EIR. And so what we're showing here is, up on the left column, you have what is the delay for somebody going from the Hook to Larkin Valley on Highway 1. So currently, it's about 35-minute delay. This is projected out to 2025. This is what's going to happen if we do not invest in widening Highway 1. If you invest in what they call the merger lanes, you'll hear about that, the auxiliary lanes, that will reduce your delay to about 20 minutes. If you do the auxiliary lane, or if you do the carpool lanes, that'll reduce it down to 5. And there I show what the numbers are in the way of the cost. So that's about an 85% improvement in flow on Highway 1. So again, the train though, which has no impact on Highway 1. And so again, what we're trying to do is educate the public that the experts in transportation will say that the train is not your best investment for reducing traffic congestion. Your best investment would be Highway 1 and also bus rapid transit. And you probably see those a lot in the way of those Google buses going over the hill. I work over in Silicon Valley, right next to the Google campus, and everybody is riding those double-decker buses. And it's a great way, if you think about it, to get that direct commute, especially over 17. So that is really the direction that we're suggesting to listen to those experts. Now, one of the things that we're trying to emphasize is that the rail corridor really is not wide enough for a train and a trail. Okay? And the main thing, there's a train up in, smart train up at Marin, okay, that they're using a lot of their analysis on how close they can put the track to the trail, right? How close can I have the trail? So the smart train, the train has a distance of 15 feet separation. So the train center line has to be 15 feet away from the side of the trail. If a train goes over less than 25 miles. If it goes over 25 miles an hour, it has to be 25 feet. So now if I add those up, I have 10 feet for the train, in the way of half the train. The setback is 25, and then the trail is 10 feet, and then another 4 feet. We're talking, the width of the trail has to be 45 to 50 feet. And if you go and you look, and if you physically walk from Manresa to the boardwalk, and think of all the trestles, the Capitola trestle, the La Selva trestle, all of those, picture it in your mind. It's not wider than 30 feet, okay? It's not hard, it's not a difficult equation to figure out. And so again, that's really one of the main messages that we're trying to send, is that we understand that you would like to have a train, but we believe that a world-class trail is a more effective solution for our community. Now, will the trail help traffic? We believe it will. We believe that based off of existing bike to work days, you already find that there's 7,000 to 10,000 people in Santa Cruz County on that day riding their bikes. Okay? Now if you have this highway, this bike highway going through the middle of our community, think about it, how much of an advantage it would be for you as a bike commuter to use that. And so what we show here is an example of some sections are going to be really busy, like 41st Avenue, where you would want an underpass or an overpass. And I'll tell you something, I ride my bike a lot, and so I can ride from Santa Cruz West Side to Aptos. It'll take me about an hour, all right? And the unique thing about the train tracks is they're flat. They can't be more than 3% grade, right? And so if I have, and it's a direct as the crow flies, I believe it's about a half an hour it will take me if I have that bike commute. So I'm cutting my commute by half. So it basically comes down to this. This is the message. I came out here trying to communicate that, hey, we're about the trail, and trying to educate the facts on the train. What are the facts? Because they're coming out saying, one day we'll have a train, it'll drive you from Seascape to Capitola, but you're going to sit here a long time, and those tracks are going to sit there vacant for a long time. And so what we're here saying, we think our plan is better. We don't necessarily think that the plan on the left there is the plan for Santa Cruz County. And we actually have an advertising campaign coming out, and this is actually that is based off of the slide that I just showed you, which is, that's the current plan. They're moving forward with the train and the trail. The trail will not be continuous. It will not be continuous. And so that's our recommendation. Again, my name is Brian Peoples. We're Trail Now. You can go to our webpage, sign up for our newsletter. We send it out each month to educate people what's going on. We encourage you to pay attention to what the Regional Transportation Commission is doing, because there's a lot of activity going on right now with the highway, with the trail. And like us on Facebook, and if you have another community meeting, we'll come out here, we'll talk, and we can talk and do more of that. And then we are not a nonprofit, but we do get donations. So that's all I got. Questions?
You said in the presentation that the cost of the rail system would be about 21 million per mile, or in that neighborhood, 11 million to 21, but there is already a rail system. And so what does that cost?
So the tracks right now are not configured for a train going faster than 5 to 10 miles. They have to replace the tracks and put in new tracking. And also, if you think about it, it's a single track. So there is no space, it's not double tracked. So it's not a real effective system. But the short answer is they have to redo it all. Question?
Are they considered light rail?
Light rail is actually even more expensive. It's about $30 million per mile. Is what the consultant has come out and said. So what their cost estimate is a diesel multi-unit. Basically, it's a diesel engine train. It's like a locomotive.
Yeah.
That's what they're proposing. It's not electric or anything.
Brian, one of the things that I think has concerned some people with the rail trail configuration as it's being proposed right now is the interaction between the bike riders and the pedestrians on the trail part of the rail. There doesn't seem to be a really good method of the people that might be pedestrians climbing onto the train, or, you know what I'm saying, getting off the
Getting on and off the trail.
Right.
Yes, absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why you need to have that separation. And truthfully, I believe when they do the trail in very busy sections like Capitola, there will be a light there that make people get off their bike and walk it because it's overcrowded. You're going to have, for example, the Monterey, down in Monterey, they have, 2.5 million users a year. Okay, and if you've walked it, you know how busy it gets. And so our trail is going to be even better than theirs.
Actually, that was a question I had. Is our trail, or are you proposing that it would connect with the Monterey Trail?
Right now, the trail would stop in Watsonville, but there is a goal to have those connections, yes. But what we're focused on is in Watsonville to Santa Cruz, and it actually goes up to Davenport as well.
How much would it cost just for the trail to pick up the tracks, put in the trail, pay back the CTC? How much would all that cost? And then how is that going to pay for it?
So that's a good question. So we've had civil engineering and cost estimate. At the end of the day, it's $40 million to you get a turnkey world-class trail. That includes paying $11 million back to the state. That includes paying the train operator off. So the RTC, in their effort to get this money, they had to get a train operator. It's called Iowa Pacific, and they gave them a free lease. Right? Iowa Pacific is basically occupying this. So we have they don't make any money. They made $140,000 in revenue. So they don't really have a lot of, it's not a big price. But they're sitting there, they know that we're going to have to buy them out of their lease. And that's probably going to be $1 to $4 million. I should probably not say that on TV, but now let me just quote. Another thing we did is we went out to the Iron Horse Preservation Society that go and they pull tracks up and put in trails. And they basically came back and they said, well, it's going to cost to build a gravel trail, excluding converting the trestles and stuff with guardrails, and we'll give you $250K back. You're going to give us $250K back? Yeah, because you recycle value of the trail, of the tracks, of the rails and the ties is worth $1.5 million. And so what you do is you pull them up, and all you do is re-crush the ballast, throw a little more base rock in, and you have an instant gravel trail. And so we actually went, and that would take about 1 to 2 months. You can do 1 mile. You can do 1 to 2 miles every month. So we can really have a trail real fast.
And then where do you get the money?
Well, there's a tax measure coming up that you're going to hear about that is going to pay for the train. And so I'm not going to go into the tax measure because we're not taking a position on it. But what we've said is that if the tracks were to come out, they can easily raise the money to build the trail. But the problem is the tracks are there.